Welcome to BoomerAngst. I'm your host, Ray Moore. This program will discuss the concerns of the baby boomer generation in things that are happening in our country today and more than likely across the world. Today's topic, education. What is the first thing a politician says they will do when they're running for office? They will stand behind education and fund it and give it all they've got. What happens the first time there's an economic crisis? Education suffers right away. Programs are cut, whether it's art or music or sports or language, as far as offering Spanish or French or German or other languages that might be offered. Those programs are cut back or gotten rid of altogether. And then they lay off teachers, they lay off lunch help, they lay off the ESL, assistant and aide, that are working in the classrooms to help the teachers because of the additional help needed with bilingual students that need to learn English and sometimes struggle with it. And they also lay off special education assistants and teachers and aides in these classrooms. Special education needs special attention. And the first thing that gets let go and laid off are teachers in those areas. Doesn't make sense. Education is preparing our young people to be the next generation. Are we the only group, the baby boomers, that are looking at this current generation and shaking our heads to the point where we're honestly afraid of what this country is going to be like when those students get to decision-making age? It's very frightening. The number of students in each classroom has risen. The number of hours inside a classroom has risen. The Chicago Public Schools have just now extended the school day from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And is that really to help them learn more, or is it to keep them off the streets? Is that a way to get them out of harm's way, or is it to actually teach them more? Not if you're going to cut back the number of teachers and add children to classrooms to the point where there are 30 or more children in each classroom and they're there from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. The blame that is placed on teachers and the attempt to test and follow up and test and retest children from kindergarten on through high school and in some levels college to keep tabs on the education process. Well, the front end needs to be worked on before you can test and retest and scrutinize the back end. What's the curriculum? What are they being taught? What are they being given? What are the tools the teachers are being given to teach? And then, okay, by the way, we're going to test and test and test, and then we're going to blame the teachers. There's a lot more going on here than inadequate or underachieving teachers or teachers that are no good, because that's the blame. That's the big finger of blame that's going on here lately. The finger's being pointed at the teachers and the schools to say, if you don't perform, if your test scores do not improve, you will be closed, or we will start letting teachers go, firing teachers based on the test scores. There's a whole lot more going on here, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. There's an issue I mentioned with ESL and special ed, the English as a second language and the special education. Those are the most necessary components of teaching in the classroom that there could possibly be, because a special education child needs the additional attention and needs the additional help, and the teachers need that help. Teaching is not an 8 to 4 or 8 to 3 job. Teachers come in early, they grade papers over their lunch hour, they make phone calls, they grade They talk to the students, they talk to the parents, they talk to the psychologists, they talk to the truant officers, they talk to everyone involved on behalf of their 25 or so students in each class. And some of them have more than one group of students to worry about in a school year. 20, 30, 40, 60 kids for one teacher to worry about across various class sizes. And you multiply that by all the meetings that have to take place, all of the grading, all of the follow-up, and is Johnny doing well, and why is Mary failing, and why are they acting out? No one seems to be giving the teachers a fair shake in terms of their workload and how put upon they are to make sure these kids get the education they're supposed to and get the good feedback and positive performance to go forward. The teachers can only do so much. The burden has to be split between the teacher, the student, and the parents. This is old school information, this is old school attitude, but you know what? There are other ethnicities in this country whose children do much better, and other parts of the world students do much better because of discipline, because the parents realize how important it is that their children be educated and move on to the next level in a good way and grasp what they need to function in the world. The U.S., it's a political tool. Education is not a way of life. Education is a political tool. And it sickens me. I am by no means a certified teacher. I have a very, very new, deep respect for teachers, as I said minutes ago, related to the work that they do. It's not an 8 to 3 job. It's all day, every day, weekends, you name it. They're at it all the time. This No Child Left Behind idea is a crock. Because all it does, it's another, again, political tool for the child to be moved ahead and a big, nice picture to the rest of the world. Oh, look, Johnny went from 5th grade to 6th grade to 7th grade to high school. Johnny gets to high school, he can't fill out a checkbook. He doesn't know what to do to make change when he goes to McDonald's to work. And that's because he didn't get left behind 2 or 3 grades before when he's still using a calculator to add and multiply single digits. It's dumb. Fix it. There's a phenomenon going on in the schools related to, and I'll call them, bilingual or single lingual. Other than special ed kids, which they should have additional help so that they can function in a regular classroom and be able to do the things that other kids can do, there are students that are put in classrooms in, say, kindergarten, 1st grade maybe, that cannot speak a word of English. Children in this country in a classroom that can't speak a word of English. What happens to them? They sit there and they color. They don't do any of the work. You try and pass out the sheets that everyone else is getting. The kid says, no, he doesn't get that because he can't understand it. They get things to color, or they sit there and they cry, unless, hopefully, someone in their own ethnicity that speaks English and their language can talk to them and help them through it. But other than that, again, what's the point and what's the idea of putting a single lingual child in an English-speaking educational setup? It gets him out of the house. It gets another student enrolled in school so that they're legal for that, but they're not learning a thing. And they too probably get passed along, No Child Left Behind. Guess what? He can't do it either because he hasn't learned English. There's a movement to sort of blame the teachers, like I said before. um, that's not a good thing because teachers are not the only ones to blame. There's a thing that happened in Atlanta a while ago. It was in the news, in newspapers and on 60 Minutes, I believe, where a bunch of schools changed the answers on a lot of kids' tests, those tests to make sure that they were, progressing and doing well, because otherwise, if they weren't, the schools were threatened with being closed. Well, the teachers and principals at some of these schools basically changed the scores. No, not the scores, excuse me. They changed the answers so that the scores would improve, so that the schools wouldn't close. Then, of course, the governor gets on and he's all indignant and upset about it and says, oh, the teachers, the principal ought to be fired and so forth, and it's hurting the children. No, you know what? Here's what it is. Those teachers and principals had to circumvent a system that doesn't work. They went around it in order to save their schools and keep going the idea of trying to teach these kids. And this brings me to my final point related to education today, discipline. Somewhere between the, I'd say, 40s, 50s, and 60s version of the United States school system of discipline, particularly in the parochial schools, which I did grow up in and experienced firsthand. There was the ruler slapping, there was the discipline when you got out of hand. Somewhere between that and a timeout, which is everybody's favorite now to do anything for discipline related to children. Somewhere between those two has got to be a way to discipline kids and make them understand that school and education and their participation is important so that they can know things better, function better when they get older. Somewhere along the line they have to get it through to them that they can't just slough it off. And again, political system, no child left behind. The child knows, first of all, no one can touch them. No one can touch them in any way in school, or they can scream bloody murder and get everybody gets sued, the teacher gets fired. All a student has to do is have a little itch against a teacher they don't like, and they can probably get that teacher fired in a heartbeat because it's all over the news and everybody's upset about the teacher did this, that, and the other thing. If you're in a classroom of second graders, I'll say it again, second graders that are about 7 years old and are out of control, seriously out of control, where they don't care. They don't want to listen to the lesson. They don't want to listen to the teacher. And they're doing other things that are well beyond their years that you would be comfortable with them doing and saying, but they know nobody can touch them. Now, 6th grade, you're up to girls sitting there texting their parents in the middle of class instead of listening to the lesson. The parents have to be involved. I understand there's a whole different ballgame these days. You've got two parents that are usually working. It's not June Cleaver anymore where mom stays home and dad works and somebody's always home to watch everybody. No, both parents are working. And if there's a single parent home, of which there are a lot these days, then that single parent is likely working 2 or 3 jobs. I get it. But you know what? The child doesn't care, because when they get home, nobody's going to be riding them to do homework or anything else. So they come to school unprepared. They come to school without sleep because they stay up doing video games. They come to school without breakfast, so they have no brain power at all. These things need to be fixed. It's not let's spank the teachers and let's cut back on Spanish class. This is let's help the kids at a much more basic level to get the help and strength and guidance they need to do the work, to understand the importance of doing well in school, and to get the education we keep saying we want them to have. This is BoomerAngst. I'm Ray Moore. Thanks for listening. Our next topic will be the economy, and I promise you it will be a much longer show.